So we're going to drag Tony Fauci out of retirement. We're going to put him in the docket. We will force, and when he is convicted, after a short and fast but thorough trial, then we will put Hunter Biden on trial. Not for tax evasion, not for some phony gun violation or money laundering. No, we're going to put him on trial for the real crime that he committed, treason. Selling this country off to rich oligarchs in China and Volodymyr Zelensky's Ukraine. And when he's convicted for those crimes, he will get the punishment that traitors like Julius and Ethel Rosenberg received before him.
What you just watched there was a bunch of hateful rhetoric coming from a guy named Stu Peters. This guy on that particular, I couldn't play it all because YouTube would, ban the video. But he's talking about Fauci. This was a while back, dragging him out there and taking him in and Hunter Biden as well, and basically talking about hanging them and anybody else that has anything to do with treasonous acts, as they call them, and any type of thing that they've done to disregard and do damage, so they say, to America. And before I go any further, because we're going to have a deep discussion here, not a popular video, but we're going to talk about it. And I have the notes. I've got the notes right here. I've jotted some things down and stick to the end because I actually got some bonus points in this particular notes. And we're going to talk about how to spot these fake Maga Christians that call themselves Christians out here, because their version of Christianity is rotten to the core. And if you don't know any better, you'll find yourself caught up with these types of folks. And that particular crowd, as you saw the cheering out there, they were cheering to the death of somebody. These folks are dangerous. And preachers go on the platform and travel at these reawakening tours and all of these things. And people that call themselves Christians, politicians that call themselves Christians, all of them, they go on these tours. And I have on here, I'm going to give you 3 points from this. This message can be expounded. I may have to make another video or two. But I have on here 3 points of their so-called, remember I said a couple of videos back, what is their version of Christianity? They always want to talk about Christian stuff, talk about the Bible, talk about Jesus Christ, talk about all of these different things. What's their version? Well, number one, I have their version is they want to brainwash you into a false belief that America was founded as a Christian nation. Take a look.
America was founded by a group of Christians. I'm going to try it again. A group of Christians. I'm going to try it one more time. A group of Christians
together prayed and dedicated this land, our beloved America, to God. The day that George Washington was inaugurated, this was the day covenant was invoked. America belonged to God Almighty. It's God, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob became Israel, Jesus, and George. This nation, particularly to Christian people, should be completely, totally based on what George Washington said to Jesus.
And as you can see there, Mario Morello, America is founded, and you see him talking like that, talking about America is founded as a Christian nation. Then you see Kenneth Copeland giving false information about George Washington, and then want to equate him just like what's the Pastor Hibbs that made a outlandish statement months back where he said that if the Bible was written today, George Washington would be in it.
5 a.m. every morning, Washington read his scriptures and prayed according to Washington. And then when time allowed it, if they were not engaged in battle, he did it again at 10 a.m. George Washington. Incredible man of God, a man of destiny. That's why he's called the father of our nation. There's nobody like him ever. And if we were writing the Bible today, Washington would no doubt be included.
And for Kenneth Copeland to sit there with his flag jacket on and all of that, standing up there in a pulpit talking about equating George Washington to this godlike figure, the slave owner, the guy that had dentures in his mouth from teeth made from the slaves. This guy. And they want to elevate George Washington and talk about America was founded as this great Christian nation. Give me a break. Anybody knows of the sins of America that was especially was going on back then? That there's no God, as far as, this nation was this walking hand in hand with God in such a way, and all of these things, the people, the Constitution, and they were just so filled with the Spirit of God, and they came along and wrote this document, and this is what we need to all get back to, and all of this thing. This is a false teaching. So their version of Christianity is first I have there, as I mentioned, brainwash you into thinking that America was founded as this great Christian nation and that the founding fathers were great Christians and everybody was just so great back then and all of this times. I don't recall, I've been a Christian for 30 years, many of you, many more, and I don't recall, even in my early years, of hearing stuff like that. This stuff is coming up, it's been out there, but it's come up to the forefront like never before. Many of you know it as well. It wasn't out there like that. And then you have on here second. Guess what it is? They want to always talk about, we're all equal in all of this, equal as far as human creation and things like that. No, we're not. Because in their eyes, I have on here, second, they want to take away a woman's rights. And I'm not talking about a right to abortion and all that. I'm not talking about that. A right to vote. Take a look.
It's the same thing with giving women the right to vote. Look at the graphs. I'm just saying, look at the graphs, look at the statistics on there. Look at how the country would be if only men voted versus what the country would be like if only women voted. Look at the last 5 or 6 elections in the presidential. Look at the midterm elections. Look at contraceptives. Look at the birth rate since contraceptives. Look at the way that women dress today versus the way that women dressed before. This is the reason why I'm not totally opposed to a lot of the things that Muslims have to offer. A lot of the things that Muslims actually seem to be right about a lot of things. Muslims seem to be right about a lot of things, and they've held steady on a lot of things. Honestly, being gay. The woman question, they've held steady, they've held firm on a lot of things. And I'm not totally opposed to what they have to offer with selling, and I'm not totally opposed to, honestly, I'm really not totally opposed to the whole pants question either. This is something my wife, but we're inching her, we're nudging her along. The whole thing where women are wearing pants now. When did that start? 1800s? They have shows and movies about how this was like a liberating thing. No, they would have gotten stoned, actually. They would have gotten ostracized. That's why we have to go back. That's why we have to go back 100 years. That's why we have to go back. That's why we do, in fact, have to start taking away rights.
And as you can see there, that's the talk that they've been talking about. They feel like women, they have damaged the country, this great country, America, because they have been allowed to vote and allowed to have rights and all of that. And I have on here. So their goal is to make you that homemaker that was brought up when the guy stood up there from the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a homemaker, but there's a whole lot of women that can walk and chew gum at the same time. They could be the homemaker and the one that go out and fulfill their dreams and get an education and go work in the workforce and want to have a sense of purpose and all of that. They don't want to sit home and just sit and be in the kitchen and having babies, endless babies and things. Because I have on here, they want to make sure that you do have these endless babies because they want to ban birth control. So that's their thing. Get in the kitchen, get the meal ready, do all of that, have endless babies, and we're going to demonize you if you want to take birth control as a couple or so, and we want to make sure we stop that. That's their version of Christianity. I mean, that makes me so sick when you have young couples and people out here that are married and things and trying to get themselves going. And we know how much kids are a great joy and everything like that. But to have a kid when you're not ready and financially ready and take on that burden and things, I mean, that is a whole lot. You know, when I had my first son, I was not ready. I was making $7 an hour. No, I take that back. I was making about $5 an hour when he was born back in 1993, my first son. And I was broke. I mean, you talk about struggling and all of these things, but in their eyes, they want to make sure that, you know, I wasn't ready and things like that. And a lot of couples don't be ready. So if they want to push it off and work and get till they get situated and take birth control, there's no sin because you want to take birth control and things. But in their eyes, they've got this warped sense because they want to, their version of Christianity is so warped. These folks are just so way out there. It's all about control. And one thing they want to do is just like the guy said in the video, they want to get you off on the sidelines. You don't have a sense of purpose with this type of their version of Christianity. And that's what I don't understand. How can some of these MAGA, it's funny because you got the MAGA women, you're not wanted. You're not even wanted in their circle. You're not wanted in their realm. Your purpose is to lay down and have the babies and get back in the kitchen. And most of all, keep your mouth shut. That's part of the deal with these guys. So that's number 2. And number 3, we talked about it on some videos. We talked about it before, but it's endless. Just like you saw that, Stu Peters talking about, basically he was dragging Fauci out of retirement, dragging, Hunter Biden, all of this. And it's always, unfortunately, Democratic people. You never hear them say anything. Well, I guess Mike Pence got, if you don't go along with the program, they'll take you and then you get bunched in there. But it's always something. If you're supposed to be a Christian, why do you want
replace them with godly men? And so I'm encouraged, and I think what we're getting ready to see prophetically in the earth and in this nation is God is going to do something supernatural that's going to bring light and expose all of this stuff we've been through. And I want to encourage listeners, don't let the media sway you. Don't let the lies of the enemy deter you. God is raising up a remnant that is anointed and powerful, and we're going to win this battle. And I don't think politically we're going to win it just through natural means. I believe that God is going to step in, hold up our arms, and begin to release an anointing that deals with some of these wicked people. I believe the Lord really spoke this to me, that God is going to begin to remove some of these people independently of anybody else doing it. They're not going to be voted out. I believe you're going to see some people begin to die, and God is going to replace them with godly men. And so I'm encouraged
that the enemy is manipulating in this nation. Yesterday, when God began to prophesy, and you've heard me say it here recently, because I heard the Lord tell me, he said, I'm going to loose a death angel in the earth. And this morning I was in prayer and I was reflecting on that because I realized it was a very strong word. I'm not just slinging stuff out when I'm prophesying. I'm hearing what the Lord has to say, and I understand the impact of it. The Lord spoke to me. He said, and it's the same angel that I loosed in Egypt. Man, I feel the sovereignty of the Lord. They ain't going to be voted out. They're going to be removed out.
number 3. Why do you want death, revenge, and jail for people like that? Because they did not go along with your political plan of the lie that you set up and know that you lost an election. And because people stood up to you or whatever, and you want to continue on with the charade and have people going up and they don't want to go along with it or whatever. Oh, you're a treasonous person and you stole it and all of these things, and we want to take you and we want to make sure you're jailed. And that's all their goal is right now. These Christians, instead of being the light out in the world, instead of being salt, instead of making a difference, for example, let's just talk about Hunter Biden, the poor guy. I mean, as we know, most families have somebody that's had a drug addiction, that's had a problem, and the truth be known, a lot of us personally have had some type of addiction of a problem with drugs or whatever, and the Lord delivered us, and unfortunately, somebody might be watching this now and you're still struggling. And these folks act like that they have been sinless their whole lives. They sat there and treat people like the women at the well and have you as an outcast in society, don't want nobody to do with you, treat you as a leper, treat you as basically old biblical times. That's what's happening with these types of people. They are evil to the core. And for them to sit there and because they lost an election, because you had to wear a mask, unfortunately, in certain places, and a lot of people didn't like it. I didn't like it. I remember when it first came up, and I was like, what is this? And I couldn't wait to get out the store, and I ripped my mask off, and this and that, and the wife used to laugh, and all of this and that. But that was as it was gaining steam, and I was like, wait a minute, this thing is getting a little more serious here, and things like that. But, it's over with that. Why are you still holding on to that? Why are you dragging Fauci back in just like you want to try to prove some type of point that's been debunked? But these are Christians that stand there. All of this type of nonsense would not be happening if the Christian evangelicals did not get behind it. If they did not stand there and get that, they got the platform, what they needed. They've been working on this thing, and it goes all the way back to the days of Jerry Falwell Seniors and all of several others before then, and it has brewed his head up, and they got exactly what they wanted and how they want it. And it's these evangelicals have sat there and got all of this chaos going, unfortunately, in society, and they're doing it in the name of the Lord. And you think somebody wants to come to the Lord. I have on here, on the conclusion, don't forget I'm going to give you the bonus, on the conclusion of this, patriotism is going to send a whole lot of people on a one-way ticket to hell, is what's going to happen. The flag, saving America and saving the flag is not going to make you in right standing with God. I don't care how many flags you put up. I don't care how many times you sit there and talk about this nation has got to be saved in some kind of way or whatever, and trying to continue to equate America as the nation of Israel as some kind of way and keep giving false information about revivals happening when the scripture talks about in the last days there will be a great falling away. And all of these things keep happening. We are seeing it right before our eyes. The devil has used this brand of Christianity to pull people far away from the scriptures, far away from the faith. They're not walk by faith, not by sight. They're walking by sight is what these folks are doing. They are walking by sight. It's because they want things a certain way, and it has to be a certain person, and it has to be this, and that, and they lifting up idols like never before with idol worship and all of these things that are not of God. This is not of God at all, period. And people don't like to hear it, but unfortunately, I'm going to continue to, I have to keep saying it. And for the bonus, I have on here, right here, to close my argument out, because many are going to continue. They'll stand by their this charade of Christian And it's a nationalism, is what it is basically. But they're going to stand by this, and they'll argue with me, and they'll have their hateful comments and all of this and that. But let me give you the bonus. I have on here. Here's what I have on here. How are you going to make a great covenant with God when you're actively involved in sin? Remember I told you the point where they were talking about America founded as this great Christian nation and things like that. America was deep into sin during that time. America, and as I mentioned, George Washington was a slave owner. And we won't get into the other ones. It was a whole lot of things going on. We know what happened on this land. We know what went on for several decades on this land. And for God to sit there and he ignored the sins of America that was going on at that time. He ignored the sins of those people, the founding fathers and all of the other people, and just ignored all of these things that were going on and made this great covenant, as Kenneth Copeland would say, and made this covenant like never before. God, that right there, if that's the case, I don't know what kind of God do we serve. Because one thing I know, I mentioned in a previous message or so, God is not going to validate our sin. He's not going to stand by and give us a high five and sit there and bless us with our evil, wicked ways. Now, fortunately, we are living under grace, and he's merciful, and a whole lot of things that he's done things when we don't even deserve it. But God is not going to sit there, and that'll be just like, you're sitting there and let's say you're looking for a promotion for a job or something, and you're scheming and you're doing some things behind the scenes because you're in competition with another couple of employees or so, and you're purposely doing some things in the files and certain things to set them up to fail like that. And you were going home praying, Lord, please let me get that job. Lord, please give me that promotion and things like that. Is God going to validate that? Is God going to validate your evil deeds that you've been doing and you've been up to? I mean, answer the question, because I don't believe, based upon the scriptures and how holy our God is that he's going to validate your lie and your evil ways that you're doing. So for them to continue on, this is this proof right here that I told you before, their foundation is off, is wicked. Their foundation is a foundation built on lies. So that right there eliminates anything else, because their foundation is on lying and is on sand. That eliminates anything else that you don't even have a starting point. We don't have a starting point. That alone, the fact that they talk like that right there, you should automatically be like, you know what? They're talking like this or that. That's their foundation. They're promoting lies. They're hanging out with these types of people and all of these types of things. And we already know all of this stuff has been debunked and stuff. That's it. That should be it right there. You should cut these types of people off. These are not Christians. And finally, I have on here, as it goes, you have pastors that will tell you, this is how warped people have become. And this is kind of goes for the MAGA Christians, but a whole lot of within the Christian realm, because I've seen it over the years. And I don't know, something just told me to put this in here. You have pastors that will tell you to stay with your spouse that is beating on you. Yeah, you're suffering abuse. And they will sit there and tell you to stay in that household and risk death upon you or your kids or whatever, and have to live under harm. And they will ignore that. And they will shame you and push you to the side. Communities will shame women and push them to the side over things like this. I don't know. Something told me to put this in here. I think it relates kind of more so to where the second point, where they want to just do women wrong and take away their rights and things within society. I think that's what made me do that. But I just had to put that on there because this may be for somebody. If you're sitting under a pastor or any type of leader like that, and they tell you it's okay for you to stay, you better stay in that household, regardless if that man is beating you and putting you to the hospital, your kids are in jeopardy, and tell you to stay there, you need to get the heck up out of that church and get out from under that type of leadership. Because that pastor ought to be ashamed of himself, and the Lord is going to deal with him in due time. This kind of stuff, there's a whole lot of stuff, and I got a whole lot more things I could have put down on this list, but the video will be way too long. This is longer than normally. I normally don't make videos over 15 minutes typically, but this one's going a little bit. I hope that you stayed with me. For those of you that did, we talk about issues the church went away from on here. Not popular. Take the devil head on. Punch him right in between the chops. Evangelism for God is the channel. If you're new, consider subscribing, hit like, come along for the journey. Until the next video, my friends, take care. God bless.